it's good to be able to share this reflection from Mark's Gospel again, and we come to the point where large crowds are now following Jesus. My name's Nigel, I'm our European President, and it's a pleasure to join you. Well, I'm going to read it. It's Mark 3:7-12. Well, Jesus withdrew with his disciples to the lake, and large crowds from Galilee followed. And when they heard about all he was doing, many people came to him from Judea, Jerusalem, Idumea, and the regions across the Jordan and around Tyre and Sidon. Because of the crowds, he told his disciples to have a small boat ready for him, to keep the people from crowding him. For he had healed many, so that those with diseases were pushing forward to touch him. Whenever the impure spirits saw him, they fell down before him and cried out, "You are the Son of God." But he gave them strict orders not to tell others about him. So here we find Jesus, firstly, is crowds are following him, want to listen to his teaching, they've heard about him, they want to get healing from him, some of them. So he withdraws. And Jesus did that, often did this. Sometimes he'd withdraw onto a mountaintop. Sometimes he'd withdraw to other places on his own. And this time he's withdrawn with his disciples onto this small boat. So he's almost escaping the crowd, but not completely. So he's out to sea a bit in this boat to just withdraw. And that's a really important lesson. And we need to learn this one to be able to withdraw ourselves. It's important, and for me as a minister, there's lots of voices, lots of people that I need to talk to, and it's important to talk to people to talk to about pastoral issues, and for me it's great to do that. But we also need to withdraw sometimes as well. And for me, the way I often do it is I'll either go to morning prayer, so at the beginning of the day, where I'll be with God, often on my own, and just pray to God, and also we read a couple of an Old Testament passage and a New Testament passage, and there's a psalm there if we want to. But it's that opportunity to intercede for other people as well, but to just be have that time to withdraw away from the busyness and just come before God. And it's really important. It refreshes us, and we need to do that. At other times I'll withdraw on the motorbike, so I'll get on my Harley and I'll ride off perhaps into the countryside somewhere and just pray as I'm going, but just have that time to be almost alone, and the bike's brilliant for it, and just to be with God as well, so to refresh ourselves. So it's important, and this is what Jesus did. This is what he did to start with. And I think from withdrawing, then he had the strength then to carry on. So we withdrew, keeping people from crowding him. But then he ministered to them from the boat. Well, it says large crowds were following Jesus, and Jesus is it's important to be followers of Jesus. I've got it was my birthday recently, and I got a few bits and bobs off people, and one of the things me kids got me and Alison was a drone, and it's brilliant. So you can control it, and it'll go where you tell it to. You push a lever and it goes forward, and it goes up in the air. And there's another function where you can put a thing on the screen, and it'll follow you as you're moving along. Now it's compelled to follow because I'm telling it to. It's got no choice. It can't suddenly decide, oh, I've had enough of this. I'm going back to my box or wherever it is. No, it's compelled to do it. And there's different reasons we follow. And if we're following because we're compelled, it's not the way Jesus worked. The crowds followed Jesus because he was someone worth following. And so why did they follow him? Well, some were curious, sure. They they'd heard about him and they wanted to see what he'd do. Others had a belief in Jesus, so the words he'd said would have impacted them, and they were there for a bit of a deeper reason. And still others put their trust in Jesus, so they were following him because they trusted him. They'd experienced him, they'd experienced the things he did, and knew that he was trustworthy, and then followed him. The disciples were like this. They'd lived with him for a bit. They'd saw the things he did, and the words he said tied up with the things he did. So he wasn't just talking, but he was actually doing the things he talked about. He was prepared to do the things that he was asking others to do, and that's really important. So what else attracted people to him? Well, he had authority, and we'll see that later as he drives this evil spirit, unclean spirit from a man. He had authority, spiritual authority. He spoke with authority, and that's what struck the people, this authority he had. But as well as authority, he had compassion. He cared. He wasn't just heartless, but he cared about the people. He had compassion. He taught, and people would have hung on every word he says as he taught, because he'd go around and he'd find things as he walked around and use them to be analogies for really deep truths to describe the kingdom of God. So to describe something deep, he'd use something simple, something everyday. So his teaching was both deep and simple. So people came for his teaching. But I think one real thing that people came for, that they saw there's something different about this man, something different. And I think that difference that they saw in him was his divinity. So Jesus wasn't just human, but he was also divine. He was God. And they would have seen this, not understanding completely, because his divinity was veiled, but people would have recognized this. And I think the other thing was Jesus was real. So there was no pretense in Jesus. He was real. And that's really important for us. We need to be real with each other. We need to be authentic. We need to also have compassion for each other. We need to be like Jesus, because that's what attracts people when we're real. Well, they'd heard about all he was doing as well, it says. So besides all these things that attracted them to Jesus and led them to follow him, they'd heard all the things he was doing. So the teaching, the healing, the liberation that he brought to people, releasing people from oppression. So he wasn't just speaking words, but he was actually doing the stuff. He was releasing people from the depths of despair. He was releasing them from the grip of evil. He was releasing them to be free from sin and brought forgiveness. So Jesus had a secret identity in some respects. And his secret identity was that he was fully God, but it was veiled. And while he walked around, he walked in as a human, but he was also divine. So and this was really important. So the incarnation, when he was born, He was born both as a man, but also as God. So he was both. He was fully God and fully man. He was fully both at the same time, which is quite difficult to grasp. Well, it was really important that he was a man. It was important that he wasn't pretending to be human. He was fully human. And that's important because he could then understand our pain. He could understand the things that we go through. And sometimes we might say, well, you don't know how difficult it is for us. You don't know what I'm going through. But Jesus did, because he was fully human. He suffered. He wept. He went through all the pain and anguish that we go through. And so he understands. And we can have draw real comfort from that Jesus isn't just sympathizing with us, but he fully understands, and so he can help. But on the other hand, he was also fully God, and that's really important as well, because as a human, Jesus couldn't save us, couldn't do much for us really. But as God, he can forgive us. He's got the ability to forgive sins, to forgive us for the things we've done. And sometimes we muck up. We all do. Even the best of us. But as God, he forgives us. He has compassion on us. And we need to forgive each other as well. But yeah, as fully God, he was able to forgive. He wasn't impotent, but he had the power to forgive sins. He had the power to save us. He had the power to free us. So both God and man, and that's really important, his secret identity. Well, he healed many, it says as well here, and his healing, this divinity, because he was God, he had the ability to heal. So this healing wasn't just natural healing, but it was a supernatural healing. So he said a word and people were healed. He told people to get up and they got up. He said the word, he touched them. He touched their eyes and they were healed from blindness. They were healed so they could walk, from leprosy. So Jesus, as being divine, was able to heal, but also through the power of the Holy Spirit, which was on him continually. So he was able to heal. And that's one of the things that attracted the people to him. The other thing was as well, his identity, this secret identity. It was also recognised by unclean spirits. And the unclean spirits, it says here, it says, he healed many so that those with diseases were pushed forward and to touch him. So he did that. But it says, whenever the impure spirits saw him, they fell down before him and cried out, "You are the Son of God." But he gave them orders not to tell others about him. So he needed to keep his identity, as his divine identity, secret at this point. So he didn't get, King Herod or those in authority realised exactly who he was. It would have been quite dangerous. And so these unclean spirits that identified Jesus silenced them. And I don't know what you think about this, about the existence of unclean or evil spirits. I'm convinced about this. And for me, studying, one of my key things was exorcism and deliverance in one of my past master's thesis, and so it really convinced me that this is real. Looking at the Bible, it's there all the way through, and for me, I don't buy the fact that Jesus was just of his time and playing along and pretending he didn't know what epilepsy was, or that I'm convinced he knew that. And I think the other thing, what really convinces me in this passage is that these unclean spirits recognised him as God. They declared, um, they fell down before him and cried out, "You are the Son of God." Now it's interesting that his disciples at this point didn't know he was the Son of God. They didn't understand that he was fully God at that point. The people, the crowd that pressed in on him, even though he healed, didn't understand who he was really. They didn't know he was the Son of God. But these people who were possessed by these unclean spirits, they certainly knew, because they declared it and shouted out. So how did they know who he was? Well, they'd seen him before. This is God before he came down as an incarnate man and God. He was there in heaven within the Trinitarian relationship of Father, Son and Spirit. They knew the Son, they knew Jesus before he was incarnate, because they'd seen him before. And so coming across him again, they knew the authority he had. They knew his identity, and they were afraid. And I'm convinced of this. I was on a train coming from heading for Chicago, and there was he didn't know I was a Christian. I was sitting in a seat next to Alison, but he just came over to me and he says, "Are you a God-fearing man?" I says, "Yeah." I thought it was a bit strange, but he said, "Well, I need you to pray with me." And basically, he was telling me about his brother and sister who were at home, and supernatural things were happening in the house, and they were terrified. And so for him, he was asking me, "Can you pray about this situation?" And for me, it was fully real. I believed him completely. But yeah, and just the fact that he came over to me, sort of almost recognising that I was a Christian, and so I fully believe this. I've spoke to people who have experienced this oppression, of testimonies of PhD students and doctors and rational guys seeing things that are unexplainable. So I fully believe this as an accurate account of what Jesus did. But Jesus had authority. Jesus had full authority, and for us, we also have full authority. We have the authority that Jesus gives us, and for us, we need not fear these things. We have the power to pray for people, and we have the authority through Jesus' name. So that's really important as well, because sometimes we will come across this stuff happening. So that's really important. So from all of this, really, we recognise firstly that we follow Jesus because of who he is, because he's fully human, he was fully God, that he had compassion, authority, that he was trustworthy, that he was someone worth following. And the reason the crowds followed, the reason we follow, because we can trust Jesus,